I was always fascinated by the format of video essays and always wanted to start making them. For this one, I want to discuss some small yet valuable design choices from my favorite game, Gothic II: Night of the Raven. There is a lot of good content about this game, but being a hardcore fan, you kinda always have something to add. Over the years, Gothic became some sort of niche cult classic, a kino of sorts. I know a lot of people and a lot of gamers that were defined by that game. There are a bunch of such games and people tend to keep it too close to their hearts. With these games, critique becomes kind of unacceptable and the praise becomes the status quo. Less critique means less discussion and less discussion leads to less knowledge. That is one of the reasons why we tend to lose the understanding of what made these games great. We just remember that they were great and that's it. Sometimes even the initial developers misinterpret their own design decisions and make their sequels worse. But I don't want to be critical for my first video. I hope I will get the chance to tell you why Gothic sometimes sucks ass. I'm just saying that we should move away from the fanboy mentality, look closely, and shed light on all that subtle stuff that made our favorite games great. Okay, let's get started. How Gothic 2 crafts the perfect emergent gameplay. Oh no, I put a term in the title of the video and now I need to explain it. What is emergent gameplay? As usual, Wikipedia says a bunch of nonsense. The definition of the word emergent is something that arises unexpectedly. That's not much, but I think it's safe to assume that emergent gameplay is a gameplay that also arises unexpectedly, at least for the player. But on the first playthrough, any gameplay is kind of unexpected, but that doesn't mean that everything is emergent gameplay. What is really important here is that emergent gameplay is A, heavily contextualized, and B, kind of personal for the player. Let's start by discussing the context first. Context is a pretty vague term here. The plot of the game can be a context, game mechanics can be a context, but all that stuff has their own definitions. Imagine a boss fight from Dark Souls. You can win the boss fight from your first try, or you can spend an entire week until finally managing to do it. For the game, there is no difference. Killing a boss is just the way to progress through the game. But for the player's perspective, the difference is huge. Developers usually have only indirect control over these kinds of context. Context of killing a boss in Dark Souls kinda depends on the difficulty of the boss, but it also heavily depends on the player. A player can have previous experience with the game, a player chooses what build to use, and so on. Frequently, the player has more control over context than the game and the developers. That is why the emergent gameplay is kind of personal. That is something magical that makes a set of game mechanics into a player's journey. That is also why playing the game and watching someone playing is different. The lack of direct control goes even beyond that. For example, in multiplayer games, emergent gameplay can occur by meeting someone who is acquainted with your mom. Multiplayer games are where personal contexts collide with other personal contexts, creating collective contexts and collective experiences. That is why multiplayer games and especially MMOs are kings of emergent gameplay. Now, designing an emergent gameplay revolves around providing the player with various instruments to interact with the game world. Emergent gameplay is often provided with the help of simulations or random generators. But do you like random encounters? Do you like the fact that in Minecraft the random mob can spawn in the darkness? Yeah, sometimes it can lead to funny stuff happening, but most of the time it's just filler, a part of the rule set. Players grow indifferent to this kind of stuff. So, how is Gothic any different? Let me illustrate. See that cave? It is a small cave that is not that important for the game. You meet that cave in the first hours of the game and then go by it every now and then. But on my last playthrough I realized that this cave, for all its insignificance, provided me with too much fun. It all started in the beginning of the game. I'm kind of a munchkin, so I usually go near it to get a good starting sword. I know that there is two more rats in that cave, and that's easy enemies, but I was pretty low on arrows, so I decided that I will visit them next time. Next time I was going to the landlord's farm and visited these two guys. I killed them for XP and looted some raw meat to cook and heal myself later. Also checked the chests inside, one required a key and the other one required lockpicking skill. I prefer to get lockpicking pretty far in the game, so I kinda forgot about that cave. After a while I got lockpicking and was going somewhere. I remembered that there is a chest in that cave that I did not open, so I went there and after breaking a couple of lockpicks, opened it and looted some stuff from it. Then I was doing my kind of usual mage playthrough and did a side quest for the merchant in the city. The merchant wanted a close sniper leader from another location. I was there and killed it, and he rewarded me with a key. And it turned out that this was the key for another chest in that cave. And it turned out that there was a runestone inside. For mage, it is a nice threat because there are limited amount of runestones in the game and you really need them to cast spells, so it's cool. That was 4 interactions with a single cave, and that was Emergent gameplay on its peak. The context behind me as a player is that I started playing Gothic in 2004 and now do a playthrough of that game at least once in a half a year. I know a lot of stuff about that game. I know every NPC by their names, and I know the location of every mob. But every time I do a new playthrough, I always find something that makes me raise my eyebrows. And I'm always genuinely impressed with that old game. The context behind this in the game is the scale. This game is huge, and there are tens of such caves in the game world. Yeah, maybe not every one of them can provide 4 meaningful interactions, and there are caves that can be cleared with just one proper visit. But that's not limited to just caves. There are a lot of locations that change depending on how far you are in the playthrough or how you play. And it is important to notice that there are no random generators in the game. Everything in that huge world is handcrafted. Somebody sat at his or her desk and thought through all of that and then put it in the game. And let me stop on the randomness talk for a second. I may start to sound like a middle-aged man that is too nostalgic and biased towards something from his childhood. But when it comes to gameplay, crafted experience is nearly always better than a generator. There are reasons why there is randomly generated stuff in games. First reason, having a generator saves a lot of time when you try to fill the world, and especially an open world, with content. Second one, the gameplay needs to be unexpected in order to be emergent. So generator seems like a pragmatic solution to the problem. But unfortunately, it is only surface level. The player's mind is not that simple. You can't just always jingle the keys. Can you imagine a player that goes into a Minecraft cave and gets genuinely surprised to find a skeleton or a creeper in there? Well, maybe if it's his first time, I don't know. Usually the player always knows that there is a generator and always knows that he will meet randomly generated enemy number 26 and will get rewarded with randomly generated chest number 15 or something like that. In a way, everything that should be unexpected becomes kind of expected. When you enter a crafted environment, you do not wonder what kind of enemy you would meet. You are wondering something like, okay, what does the game have for me here? One is like eating Skittles without looking, and the other one is dark dying. You never know what you will get, but one is much more exciting than the other. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. It is high detalization. You can get misguided and start thinking that crafted means highly detailed, but that's not always the case. There is a good example of high detalization that does not mean great gameplay. That is from another game that I can call my favorite, Stardew Valley. Now look at this wiki page for the blacksmith. It has everything about this guy that has been put in the game. What he likes, what he dislikes, what he does during normal days and during holidays, what does he do if you befriend them, everything. And every character in Stardew Valley is like that. But what kind of gameplay does it generate? Usually you just go to make business with the guy, and for some reason he's not on the workplace because it is 14th of winter at 2 p.m. and at that time he gets to be behind the bush on the day. This detailization mainly makes the gameplay process cryptic, raises frustration, and makes you want to go check the wiki. It rarely creates meaningful situations. Gothic 2 somehow manages to stay natural and immersive in these kind of situations. It also treats everything equally. There are a lot of examples of games that come up with great and well-crafted scenarios for the player, sometimes much better than scenarios from Gothic. But these games tend to place their best stuff up front or save it for the main stories. Gothic just makes it casual. Every small cave has the same treatment of love, dedication, and care. That is why I think that Gothic 2 creates the perfect emergent gameplay. There are still a lot of little and important details of Gothic remaining, but for this video I think it is time to wrap things up. If you are hesitant to try this game, I encourage you to try it. And even if you won't try it, next time some game makes you raise your eyebrows, take a pause. Take a pause and try to think of why did this happen.